Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because on this channel we don't just talk about coins. We uncover hidden stories, forgotten history, and the surprising value that could be sitting quietly in your drawer, your garage, or even in an old jar passed down from your father or grandfather. If you're between 35 and 65 or older, this is especially for you. This is about legacy. This is about history. And today, we're diving into a coin that most people ignore. The 1964 South Africa 1 cent now. When people hear 1 cent, they usually think small, insignificant, worthless. But the truth is, some of the smallest coins carry the biggest stories. And sometimes, they carry serious value. In 1964, the world was a very different place. Industries were rising. Economies were shifting. Political tensions were shaping nations. And in South Africa, change was in the air. The country had officially become a republic just a few years earlier, in 1961. The old British influence was being replaced with a stronger national identity. New coins were introduced. New symbols were stamped into metal. And among them was the humble 1 cent coin of 1964. At first glance, it seems simple, small, made of bronze, lightweight in the hand. But look closer. On one side, you see the denomination 1C. Clean, bold, straight to the point. On the other side, the national emblem of that era, a symbol of authority, sovereignty, and a nation defining itself. For the men watching this, especially those who appreciate history, you understand that objects like this are more than metal. They represent a time, a government, an economy, a chapter of the world's story. In 1964, coins weren't just currency. They were tools of identity. Every line engraved into that 1 cent piece was intentional. The design wasn't random. It reflected the early republic period of South Africa. It marked a shift away from colonial imagery towards something distinctly national. Now here's where it gets interesting. Millions of these coins were minted. Yes, millions. So you might think, how can something made in the millions be valuable? That's the right question. Because value in the coin world isn't just about age. It's about condition. It's about rarity within the mintage. It's about errors. It's about survival. Think about how many 1 cent coins were actually saved in perfect condition. Almost none. These coins were used daily. They were thrown into pockets, dropped onto shop counters, scraped against other coins, forgotten in toolboxes. They paid for bread. They paid for newspapers. They passed through the hands of working men, shopkeepers, farmers, mechanics. Most of them wore down. The details faded. The shine disappeared. And over time, many were melted down or simply lost. But a small percentage survived in remarkable condition. And that's where collectors start paying attention. Men between 35 and 65 understand something younger generations often miss. Preservation matters. Condition matters. Originality matters. A 1964 South Africa 1 cent coin in heavily circulated condition may only be worth a small amount above face value. But when you find one that was barely touched, sharp details, full lettering, original luster still visible under light, that's when the conversation changes. Collectors look for specific things. They examine the edges. Is there excessive wear? They study the fields, the flat surfaces. Are there scratches? They inspect the high points of the design. Are they flattened, or are they crisp? They even look at color. Bronze changes over time. Some coins turn dark brown. Others develop a rich chocolate tone. A few retain a reddish glow close to how they looked the day they were minted. Now imagine holding one that looks almost new. Even after more than 60 years, that's powerful. But there's more. In 1964, minting technology was good, but not perfect. And whenever you have large production numbers, the possibility of mint errors appears. Off-center strikes, slight double impressions, planchet flaws. These are the kinds of details serious collectors search for. Because while millions of standard coins may exist, error coins can be extremely limited, and limited supply drives demand. Another factor is historical context. The 1960s were a defining decade in South Africa's history. Political tension, economic restructuring, international scrutiny. Coins minted during this era represent more than commerce. They represent a nation navigating its identity. For many collectors, especially men who appreciate political history, Cold War-era economics, and the global shifts of the 20th century, owning a coin from 1964 South Africa is like holding a physical piece of that transformation, but it's not just metal. It's a witness. Now let's talk about generational psychology. Many men in the 35 to 65 plus range remember handling coins as children. Back when coins had real purchasing power. Back when small denominations still mattered. The 1 cent wasn't symbolic. It bought things. It had weight in daily life. Today, inflation has changed everything. Small coins disappear. Digital payments rise. Physical money becomes less common. That creates nostalgia. And nostalgia fuels collecting. When collectors look at the 1964 1-cent coin, they're not just seeing currency. They're seeing memory. They're seeing their fathers counting change. They're seeing old wooden counters, metal cash registers, corner shops, and emotional value often translates into market value. Another powerful factor is international collecting. South African coins are not only collected within South Africa. Global numismatists, particularly in Europe and North America, actively seek coins from transitional political periods. The early republic coinage of South Africa fits perfectly into that category. Now demand expands beyond borders. And here's something many people don't realize. Bronze coins from the 1960s are becoming harder to find in high grade every year. Why? Because time doesn't stop. Oxidation continues. Storage conditions matter. Humidity damages surfaces. Improper cleaning destroys value instantly. Yes, cleaning. This is critical that if you ever find a 1964 South Africa 1-cent coin, never polish it. Never scrub it. Never try to improve its shine. Collectors prefer original surfaces, even if they show natural aging. Once cleaned, a coin loses a significant portion of its collector appeal. Original condition is king. Now let's talk numbers in a realistic sense that a heavily circulated 1964 1-cent coin might only carry modest collector interest. But in uncirculated condition, meaning it shows no wear from circulation, the value can rise dramatically compared to face value. And if that coin is graded professionally and certified in high mint state condition, the price can increase even more. Grading matters because it removes guesswork. It confirms authenticity. It confirms condition. It gives buyers confidence. Confidence increases bidding. Bidding increases price. Price creates headlines. And headlines attract new collectors. There is also something else. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and join a community of serious collectors, history lovers, and men who understand that real value often hides in plain sight. If you're between 35 and 65 or beyond, if you appreciate legacy, history, and the thrill of discovering something overlooked, this story is for you. Today, we're diving into a small coin with a massive story. The 1962 South Africa 1-cent. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Small, modest, brownish copper tone. Something you might ignore in a box of old change. But let me tell you something powerful. History doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And only those who listen carefully are rewarded. The 1962 1-cent coin from South Africa was struck during a time of significant political and economic transformation. This wasn't just pocket change. This was a coin born in a newly declared republic. In 1961, South Africa officially became a republic, breaking away from British rule. The following year, 1962, represented one of the earliest years of coinage fully reflecting this new national identity. Now think about that for a moment. When you hold this coin, you're not just holding metal. You're holding a piece of a nation redefining itself, a country stepping into a new chapter, a symbol of sovereignty, independence, and economic reset. The obverse of the 1962 1 cent features Jan van Riebeeck, the Dutch colonial administrator who founded the Cape Colony in 1652. His portrait had been used on South African coins for years, but during this transitional era, it carried even more weight. To many collectors, that image represents a complex and layered history. For serious numismatists, complexity adds value. Coins tied to historical turning points always demand attention. On the reverse side, you see the denomination 1C, along with the year 1962 and the country's name. Simple, clean, no flashy design. But that simplicity is deceptive, because what truly matters in coin collecting is context, mintage numbers, condition, and historical timing. Let's talk mintage. In 1962, millions of these 1 cent coins were produced. On the surface, that might make you think it's common. But here's where experience separates casual observers from serious collectors. Survival rate is not the same as mintage. Over decades, coins are lost, damaged, melted, corroded, or simply forgotten. Copper coins in particular are vulnerable to wear and environmental damage. Finding one today in exceptional condition, sharp details, original luster, minimal scratches, is not easy, and condition is everything. A circulated 1962 1 cent might look worn. Smooth edges, faded details, discoloration. That piece may hold sentimental value, but financially, it remains modest. However, an uncirculated or high-grade example, that's a different story entirely. Men between 35 and 65 understand something important. Preservation creates value. Whether it's classic cars, vintage watches, old whiskey, or coins, condition determines demand. A coin that survived over 6 decades in near-perfect form becomes rare by default. But there's more. The early 1960s were economically volatile for many countries. South Africa was restructuring its currency system after becoming a republic. Decimalization had taken place in 1961, replacing the old pound system with rand and cents. That means the 1962 1 cent belongs to the very early decimal series. Early year coins in a new monetary system often attract collectors who specialize in first-of-series issues. Collectors love beginnings, first editions, first strikes, first years of change. The 1962 1 cent sits right at the start of South Africa's decimal coinage journey, and that gives it historical gravity. Now let's address something many overlook: metal composition. The 1962 1 cent was struck in bronze. Bronze coins age differently. They develop patina over time. Some turn deep chocolate brown. Others develop reddish tones. Occasionally, you'll find one with a beautiful, even original red luster. And that's where collectors get excited. Original red bronze coins from the 1960s are increasingly difficult to find. Most have darkened. When a coin retains its original mint red color after 60-plus years, it becomes a premium target. And here's another factor: grading. That if a 1962 South Africa 1 cent is professionally graded by a recognized grading authority and receives a high mint state grade, especially MS65 or higher, its desirability increases dramatically. High-grade early decimal coins are not common because people didn't think to preserve small denomination coins back then. They were everyday money, spent without a second thought. But somewhere, someone tucked a few away, maybe in a drawer, maybe in a tin box, maybe in a collection passed down from father to son. And today, those preserved pieces are the ones collectors fight over. Let's also consider global demand. Coin collecting is no longer limited to one country. International collectors seek coins that represent political shifts, colonial history, and transitional periods. South Africa's early republic coinage fits all three categories. Coins connected to significant political eras tend to rise in interest over time. As decades pass, the historical narrative becomes clearer. Scholars analyze it. Collectors reevaluate it. Markets adjust. Now, imagine you're at an estate sale. You find a small envelope labeled Old Coins. Inside, mixed with foreign pieces, sits a 1962 1 cent. Most people walk past it. They're looking for silver, gold, something shiny. But the seasoned collector stops, that he looks closely at the details, that he checks the date, that he inspects the condition, he understands context. That's the difference between someone who collects casually and someone who invests strategically. And here's something powerful. Small denomination coins often become sleeper collectibles. Why? Because they were overlooked for years. While everyone chased gold Krugerrands and large silver crowns, the humble cent coin quietly aged. Scarcity grows quietly. Demand grows quietly. And then one day, the market wakes up. There's also the psychological factor. Many collectors from the 35 to 65 plus age group remember handling similar coins in their youth. Nostalgia is a powerful economic force. When people reach a stage in life where they have disposable income and a desire to reconnect with the past, they return to the objects that defined their early years. Coins become time machines. Holding a 1962 1 cent can transport someone back to childhood markets, corner shops, bus fares, and simpler times. That emotional connection adds fuel to demand. Now let's talk about errors and varieties. While standard 1962 1 cent coins are collectible in high-grade, rare mint errors,